Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and I welcome you back with us again tonight. Many of you have asked, how do I avail myself of all the previous episodes? It's very simple. You click on YouTube, you find A Time for Truth show. Hit the subscribe button, and you'll be one of our members. There's no charge. And together, we'll create a world that has truth. And with truth comes hope. And with hope comes renewed confidence and trust in each other. To build a new world, a world with integrity. Let's begin, because tonight is a very special night. I don't know how many of you realized it. You said, well, what's very special? It's Monday night, Dr. Ben. What's special about Monday night? It's another day in 2024. No, it's more than just that. Because we're in November, which is the 11th month. And Buddha, if you put up that first image, I'd love for them to see it. And we're on the 11th day of November. So we're actually in a very significant date with numerology, because we have 11:11. There you go. A time considered significant. It's seen as a time of synchronicity, where we get together, we're in tune, like the song of the Who. You know, I'm in tune, and I'm gonna swoon all over you. Where we get together, where there's a spiritual influence. What does number one signify? Well, number one obviously comes after nothing, after zero. And number one is a new beginning. But now we have one, and we have one, and we have one, and what? It looks like we have tremendous amount of opportunity for new beginnings with 4 ones. And we have 11. You say, well, in numerology, what does 11 mean? In numerology, 11 is a master number. In other words, a number with more energy, more power, that encourages our growth as personal human beings. And some people say that 11:11 is a sign where we have a chance to make a wish. We can think of a dream, or something, a word called a postulate, something we'd like to occur in our world. And that it's a time for us to tune into our spiritual self, And if you go back to that image that you just had, Buddha, I think it's a great example of tuning in, not just to yourself as a physical entity, but you as a higher being with intentions that actually go out. Probably you've been in different rooms, and some felt good and some felt not so good. But the room physically was the same, yet the feeling that you felt was different. What was it you were feeling? You were feeling that energy that permeated from the human beings that occupied the room before you entered into that space, and you felt their intentions. But with 1111, we have an opportunity to be optimistic. We have an opportunity to take a look, review what we've been doing over the past 11 months. And as we get near the end of the year, to make resolutions well before the new year. To take a look and see, well, maybe we're going to change something that we thought was our priority, but we're going to realign it. And we're going to go in this direction. We're going to make a new plan. We can see a new avenue. And we can see that there are other factors that can come. Some people with this date, 11/11, say that the universe is saying to us, it's time to reflect. It's saying to us, as it rings its bell, it's time for a new beginning. And so we take a look at what we've been doing. We take a look at what's been happening in our world. We take a look at some of the changes that are occurring. And we look at the hope that we have for not only the rest of 2024 in November and December, but well into the future. Engineer, let's put on the first video as we look at how to make more happiness in our future, how to walk a path that leads us into a more prosperous, joyous life. Let's put on the first video, engineer.
Happiness. True joy and happiness are valuable. If one does not survive, no joy and no happiness are obtainable. Trying to survive in a chaotic, dishonest, and generally immoral society is difficult. Any individual or group seeks to obtain from life what pleasure and freedom from pain that they can. Your own survival can be threatened by the bad actions of others around you. Your own happiness can be turned to tragedy and sorrow by the dishonesty and misconduct of others. I am sure you can think of instances of this actually happening. Such wrongs reduce one's survival and impair one's happiness. You are important to other people. You are listened to. You can influence others. The happiness or unhappiness of others you could name is important to you. Without too much trouble, using this book, you can help them survive and lead happier lives. While no one can guarantee that anyone else can be happy, their chances of survival and happiness can be improved. And with theirs, yours will be. It is in your power to point the way to a less dangerous and happier life.
There we go. A Way to Happiness. And for those of you who would like to get that book for free, you can go online at thewaytohappiness.org and they'll be happy to send you a free book. It's a common sense guide that really cuts across all races, creeds, religions, colors, and that's yours for free on 11/11 to map out a new future for yourself, a new prosperity. So let's go on, because we have resolutions and we've made them so many times in our lives, but somehow we don't stick to them, or we get overwhelmed because of what's going on in our world. So I think one of the things that we need to do is, if we're going to change and we're going to take opportunity, we have to also at the same time deal with reality. And what are the steps that we could do? So let's take a look, and maybe number one would be to really know what in our hearts, deep down, we feel to be true. Not what someone else has told us, but what we actually feel instinctively. And to be unshakable in our belief in ourselves and what we feel and what we believe. And not to change that and lose ourselves. So many people complain that they have difficulty sleeping, that they're not as happy as they'd want to be. But imagine, how could you be happy? How could you decrease stress when we're really not even being ourselves? Because when we're not true to ourselves, what are we losing? Everything. So number two, once we would stick to what we know, the next step, which is crucial, applying, actually doing physically and in action what we know instinctively is true for us. And so, by applying those instinctive truths, which are usually moral, which are usually in the right, and defend against the wrong, we help not only ourselves, but we feel the pleasure of helping our friends, our neighbors, our children, our families. And then three, once we've done that, we start getting some confidence and a belief in ourselves. We start insisting that others do the same. Not in a forced way, but in a way that there's integrity in our world, so there can be a trust in our world. So many times we're looking for legislation to change what we each individually can change overnight through a simple decision, like after this show on A Time for Truth about November 11th, 11/11. And the fourth, to be willing to speak out against lies and false information. If someone was on YouTube selling something that was bad for your skin and was erosive or corrosive, you would say something about it because it would be drastic. Sometimes we justify and we say, well, it's not that bad. We wouldn't want it done for us, but we kind of like justify for others. But when we do that, we start losing ourselves again. So we have to be willing in 11/11 to speak against lies, to speak against false information, because it does not help mankind. And who are we but a microcosm of mankind? And when you think about the food that the farmer gave us, when you think about the safety that the policeman gave us, when you think about the freedom that our military has fought for, when you think of the mothers who've created families, and the ministers and rabbis and priests who've tried to bring spirituality, we need to protect our communities, our country, and to speak out against violence, to speak out against antisocial activities, and to persist in protecting our freedoms. Too many countries have lost their freedoms and suffer in the turmoil of dictatorships, of fascism, of communism. The best ism there is a group of individuals with integrity, individual integrity, fighting for liberty and justice for all, which is part of our United States of America stable quotes, with liberty and justice for all. And really for all. Not to say it as a byword, not to say it to win an election, but so that all Americans could actually experience that and eliminate the past negativities, but for real. And 7, to eliminate the prejudices and bigotries of the past, for real, not for election, not for monetary gain, but because you yourself personally would not want it. Some people would say, well, Dr. Fialkoff, but you're a white man. I also happen to be a Jewish man, born in Cuba, y hablo español, y soy Latino. And so then you have to take a look. Well, as a Jewish man, I was exposed to some of the prejudices and bigotries of being a Jewish white man. I could have been a Catholic black man. I could have been an Indian Hindu. I could have been a Chinese Buddhist. But we need to eliminate the prejudice and bigotries of the past. And this way, we actually have a new beginning because we can trust each other, because we protect each other. If you really look at it and you want to have a quote for African Americans, look at Jesse Owens, who actually thought in a world manner and went to Germany to fight for freedom, although he didn't himself, as an African American, have freedom in his very own country, and suffered even after he won 4 gold medals for the United States of America. But we can take 11/11 and learn from that injustice and not have it happen again. Today, on November 11th, is a moment where we can actually look and say, yes, it's not just some cosmic revelation, the age of Aquarius. No, it's actually a time for a higher purpose and a higher integrity in each one of us. When you really look at it and you feel the energy that each one of us creates, when the Yankees go to the World Series, the energy in Yankee Stadium was astronomical. Where did it come from? The building, when there's no one there, doesn't have that energy, that common purpose. And that was only a baseball game. Imagine everyday life. And you say, well, how can we have that energy? Because we're lucky. Because the farmers in America and from Central America and from Latin America send food to our country. And we send medicines to their country and antibiotics. And we get electronics from Korea and China and Japan. And we get tremendous engineering from Germany and Sweden. And from every part of the world, we partake. So with the number 11 and 11/11, we take a look at our true abilities, our intuition, and our dreams to become a reality of our true spiritual nature. This 11/11 portal, this movie that we're fabricating today on 11/11, this sign where supposedly angels would come and offer guidance, love, protection, and good luck. Sometimes we wait for angels. And I say that the angels that we're waiting for and that are prophesied on 11/11, you're seeing when you look in the mirror yourself. We are the angels. One time I spoke to a rabbi and said, I think that what we speak about in all our religions, that in this time and in that time, the Messiah will come and there'll be peace on earth, or the prophet. And I said to him, I think that's a concept. It's not one being, but all beings on the planet bringing this concept to earth and having peace on earth. Let's take a look at a video made on greatness, forgiveness, love. Let's go forward, Buddha, with the video.
What is greatness? The hardest task one can have is to continue to love his fellows despite all reasons he should not. And the true sign of sanity and greatness is to so continue. For the one who can achieve this, there is abundant hope. For those who cannot, there is only sorrow, hatred, and despair. And these are not the things of which greatness, or sanity, or happiness are made. A primary trap is to succumb to invitations to hate. True greatness merely refuses to change in the face of bad actions against one, and a truly great person loves his fellows because he understands them. After all, they are all in the same trap. Some are oblivious of it, some have gone mad because of it, some act like those who betrayed them. But all are in the same trap. The generals, the street sweepers, the presidents, the insane. They act the way they do because they are all subject to the same cruel pressures of this universe. Some of us are subject to those pressures and still go on doing our jobs. Others have long since succumbed and rave and torture and strut like the demented souls they are. We can at least understand the one fact that greatness does not stem from savage wars or being known. It stems from being true to one's own decency, from going on helping others whatever they do or think or say, and despite all savage acts against one, to persevere without changing one's basic attitude toward man. To that degree, true greatness depends on total wisdom. They act as they do because they are what they are, trapped beings, crushed beneath an intolerable burden. And if they have gone mad for it and command the devastation of whole nations in eras of explanation, still one can understand why and can understand as well the extent of their madness. Why should one change and begin to hate just because others have lost themselves and their own destinies are too cruel for them to face? The real lesson is to learn to love. He who would walk scatheless through his days must learn this: never use what is done to one as a basis for hatred. Never desire revenge. It requires real strength to love man, and to love him despite all invitations to do otherwise, all provocations and all reasons why one should not. Happiness and strength endure only in the absence of hate. To hate alone is the road to disaster. To love is the road to strength. To love in spite of all is the secret of greatness, and may very well be the greatest secret in this universe.
And so I always find that video really energizing, because how many of us all day long, and that's a great image, leave that one up for me, Buddha. How many of us during the course of the day pass through dejection, frustration? You start the day with so much energy and hope, and the next thing you're on the expressway and somebody cuts you off, someone else behind you is speeding up to not let you in. You get to work and you get the environment and it's negative and you get dejected. But that video, of understanding, of not that it will go away in a moment, but that you'll have a different point of view, that you'll look on the world, your world, our world, as your brother, your sister, your uncle, your aunt, your mother, your father. I'm sure you have arguments and happiness with all of them. I don't know any family on earth who would say they never had a conflict. In fact, there's a saying, the more love that exists, the more likelihood that your fights are going to be full of explosions and nuclear bombs, because where there's love, and there's a tremendous amount of energy. So what is another secret that we can end off on? Before we make our resolutions and beginnings of 11/11 come true, well, let's take a look at a triangle that you have on the screen. A very simple triangle, but profound, called the Affinity Reality Communication Triangle, that was actually discovered by a man named Hubbard, who was a humanitarian and wanted to bring trust and peace to all peoples of earth. Because with such high technology that we possess, with the ability to destroy in a moment and create black atmospheres, we need to realize the importance of having understanding and affinity and an ability to resolve conflict without warfare. 11/11 is a time for our world to change. And this triangle offers a solution. How many of you have gone into a situation and met someone that for some reason you liked and you didn't know why, but you hit it off immediately? Well, your affinity would be quite high. Affinity being a feeling of liking, of closeness, of warmth. And with that affinity, you start seeing things that you had in common. You start going to the lower right with reality. And you would see that there was reality and a concordance and agreement on both your parts of what you consider to be real to you. And with that, magically, instantaneously, you started to communicate. Or maybe no words were exchanged, but you just looked at each other. Maybe if it was the opposite sex, that became your spouse. That became your loved one, your partner in life. Maybe if it was a team that you found, you became a team member. It was a job, you started work there because you were in communication and you liked each other and you cooperated and you had understanding. And understanding is what happens when this triangle expands and you have more and more closeness, more and more liking, more and more agreement, more and more communication. The conflicts start dropping away when the understanding increases out and the triangle expands like a volcano, getting wider and wider and wider. Hopefully, using this principle on 11/11 throughout the planet, in all nations, in all religions, in all creeds, in all races. This triangle exists at the World Cup Championship game with a tremendous affinity for the teams and the reality of a championship game and the communication with the roar of the crowd, and you feel the tremendous energy that exists. It happens at the Olympics. It happens at the World Series. It happens in heavyweight championship fights. The realities are different. The purposes are different. But it's interesting how we gravitate together. Some higher realities and affinities than others. But if we apply this principle with a common purpose on this magical day of 11/11, we can take a look at this new year and say, our resolution on 11/11 has come true. So this New Year's, I can say, I made my resolution. I stuck to my idea, my dream, and it is a reality. And may 2025 and a new agenda come, a real agenda of honesty, of integrity for all peoples of earth, for all races, for all creeds. A time for truth, as this show stands for all peoples of earth, where we appreciate the miracle of life. Remember this as I end the show. The trees never start a war. They don't go on strike and ask for more money. The sun doesn't destroy the earth. The moon doesn't disappear at night. It comes back as a full moon each period. Let's look at nature and life. Let's try to simulate, emulate, and copy the positive. Let's time for change, a time for truth, a time for man on this 11/11/2024. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll see you on the next episode. And I remind you of this on New Year's Day, when we have our show in January, of what we accomplished this very night. Good night.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet